needs to do more than they're doing. I want to make this clear. If we stay on the current path, it leads to certain near-term total global extinction. That's a mathematical certainty. We've lost 60% of Earth's wildlife populations in the last 40 years. 60%. The die-off rates right now are cataclysmic. It's an unimaginably accelerated mass extinction right now. So here's my point. With those who think that they're saving anything by biting their lip, hiding in the corner, cowering in their cabin on the deck of the Titanic, of which we're all on, it's not going to save you. We have one chance to change course, and we have to do it soon or it won't matter. And this is where, again, paychecks, pensions, personal pursuit of pleasure, whatever it is people are doing with their time, their energies, their efforts, it's not going to matter soon. And if they truly love their children, if they truly claim to care, then they need to show it by taking action now. And for people to understand they're not helpless, as they've convinced themselves of or have been told, that if all of us effectively and efficiently woke others up around us, this is simply the only way forward. That we must reach critical mass so that those in the military, those participating, their families and so forth, understand that they are quite literally killing themselves along with the rest of us. For example, with logging here, the clear cutting and the practices that happen cutting down the forest, which produce oxygen, which help produce rainfall, it's happening on a mind-numbing scale. And what the logging companies will do is actually spike with spikes that kill the tree all the non-timber trees, so they can virtually eliminate any biodiversity in the forest, and they then plant back a monoculture, genetically modified tree. And I'm saying this kind of mentality of doing anything we want to the planet, dumping nuclear waste in the oceans, how is geoengineering causing the forest fires, fueling that? Single greatest factor in the forest fires burning down around the globe is geoengineering. Yeah. Single greatest factor. Because of the drought, because of the toxic rain, you have bioavailable metals in the rain killing the root system. We have a destroyed ozone layer because of geoengineering. We have more lightning because of geoengineering and the ionization of the atmosphere. We have incendiary materials settling on the branches. The worst from every direction leading back to geoengineering. And once those forests burn down, the dark soot settles on the ice around the globe, making the ice dark, making the ice absorb more heat from a shredded ozone layer that's now allowing more heat to penetrate, and that starts a feedback loop. And that feedback loop feeds on itself, and as the oceans warm, methane thaws and releases, goes into the atmosphere, covering the planet like a layer of gas, more heating, more fires, more burning. Everything starts to feed on itself. On a warming planet, and the planet is absolutely warming, you must have more rain, not less. The laws of physics make that clear. How can we have less? Because the atmosphere is filled with light scattering particulates that are desiccants, which means they absorb atmospheric moisture. They disrupt the hydrological cycle, the rain cycle, because they block light photons, which create evaporation. They slow overall wind. They stop convection. So this is the wrench in the works. Particles in the atmosphere absolutely destroy the hydrological cycle. So when they saturate the atmosphere with these particulates, they can migrate the rain right over one area and drop it on another area. It's far worse than bad. We're heading for Canfield Ocean, which means a dead, lifeless, superheated, stratified, oxygenless ocean. We're very close to that. And what I want to stress for all your listeners is that I don't want them to believe me. I want them to investigate, and I want them to consider this. Not to look at a headline and form an opinion off of that because it's what we want to believe. Half of the Great Barrier Reef is expected to die in the next 30 days. Half. Why? Because the water is so unimaginably warm, it's literally killing the reef in the geologic blink of an eye. And that's why it's so important for people to understand that geoengineering is making a very bad situation exponentially worse, not better. You might have seen some recent headlines trying to attribute declining health to climate change. Again, another lie. when we're talking about the declining health, mathematically speaking, nothing compares to the all-out assault from climate engineering, which is poisoning the entire planet, every breath we take. But to get at the core of this issue, we have to expose those who are putting out the disinformation and hiding the reality. And again, that's meteorologists, we have reporters and so forth, and it's up to all of us cumulatively in our area to work together to expose these people that are lying and helping to hide these issues. I would argue that instead of being mentally shut down by considering how bad it may get if we don't change course, let's focus on what we need to do to actually change course. Share credible data with people, start spot fires of awareness, help us to reach critical mass, and we can take a quantum leap in the right direction, period.
Massive chemtrail spraying started about 4 weeks ago, right before everybody went on spring break. Why? You know, that's a perfect scenario to spread disease all over the country because you have so many travelers going to all the cities and then they're going back home and spreading it. You know, North Carolina's had 8 deaths. There's a chronic respiratory infection going on all across the United States, coughing, heart attacks that are happening. I started piecing it all back to a few different organisms that they've found and tested. An organization up in British Columbia in Canada tested and found 3 microorganisms, Pseudomonas, some mold, and another strange organism. And I'm linking that to all these problems that we're having because ethylene dibromide they're finding in the chemtrails as well, and that is a banned pesticide that causes severe respiratory and immune system dysfunction. Also, I found that the organisms identified in the chemtrails actually cause endocarditis, swelling around the heart, as well as heart attacks. And I've got reports showing individuals that came down with this respiratory illness and died within 2 days. You know, some of them are scary. I looked up some of the organisms and they were, you know, commissioned by the US military, patents and all this stuff. So just do your research and know that if you're coming down, look in the sky, look and see if there's a bunch of, you know, chemtrails flying down on you. What's happening with a lot of it is it's destroying the soil. So it's not only keeping people sick, you know, keeping people dumbed down, causing massive illness, which they can bank off of because all the doctor's visits, and then they're going to be able to sell vaccinations. But recent research has shown that some of these organisms that are getting inside your system and some of these metals that accumulate in your system can actually be controlled through cell phone towers and through frequencies. So they can actually, you know, alter what's going on inside your body. To me, that's so scary when you look at frequencies because you can't see it, feel it, hear it, taste it, nothing. That's the scary thing with the flu shots and the vaccinations too, with these mycoplasms and these little organisms that can be controlled by frequencies. I think one of the biggest attacks that we're going to have and that we have had is going to be in the future through controlling your mind, controlling your cells, controlling the water in your system by emitting harmful frequencies.
a unos pasos de la destitución. El Congreso de Brasil ya ha dado el primero de ellos al pronunciarse a favor de iniciar el procedimiento de destitución de la presidenta Dilma Rousseff con 367 votos a favor y 137 en contra. Si el Senado toma la misma decisión que la Cámara Baja, se suspenderá el mandato de Dilma Rousseff durante 180 días, mientras el Congreso examina el caso. Durante este periodo, el país será gobernado por el vicepresidente Michel Temer, a quien la presidenta atribuye la organización del proceso contra ella.
Es algo insólito y chocante, pero sobre todo es espantoso que un vicepresidente en el ejercicio de su mandato conspire abiertamente contra el presidente. En ninguna democracia del mundo se respetaría a alguien que actuara de este modo.
Se acusa a la presidenta de haber realizado presuntamente maniobras fiscales irregulares para ajustar las cuentas de su gobierno. Pero los diputados que votaron a favor de la destitución están lejos de ser impecables en el ejercicio de sus funciones públicas. Según Transparencia Brasil, el 53% de los integrantes de la Cámara de Diputados están siendo investigados. Entre quienes no están libres de culpa se cuentan los que encabezan el proceso político contra Dilma Rousseff. El propio Eduardo Cunha, presidente de la Cámara de Diputados, está siendo investigado por el Tribunal Supremo por recibir sobornos de empresarios en el caso Petrobras. Le sigue el vicepresidente Michel Temer, investigado por su participación en una operación ilegal de compra de etanol.
Algunos lo han calificado como un circo político, otros como un golpe de Estado, sin fundamento, ilegal, un pretexto para remover del poder una presidenta que ha perdido la popularidad. ¿Quiénes están detrás de estas iniciativas para destituir a Dilma Rousseff y cuáles son sus verdaderos objetivos?
Hay partidos políticos, hay medios de comunicación, pero también factores externos. Es un precedente grave el que abre la situación política en Brasil porque la presidenta Dilma llega al gobierno nuevamente después de unas elecciones democráticas. Antecedentes hay y son todos antecedentes que demuestran que la derecha latinoamericana esté involucrada en estos eventos. El intento de golpe en Ecuador en el año 2010, el intento de golpe en Bolivia en el año 2008, el golpe en Paraguay en el año 2012, el golpe en Honduras a Manuel Zelaya en el 2009. En todos estos eventos está la derecha latinoamericana involucrada y este es un caso más de eso, pero con la complejidad y la gravedad de que es en el país más grande de América Latina en el Caribe y que puede provocar asimismo inestabilidad en los demás países.
Cuban Revolution in 1959, a priority for the United States was to stop left-wing governments from coming into existence, either socialist governments or far-left governments, inspired by the example of what happened in Cuba. And you had, as a consequence, a range of really severe military dictatorships imposed on different peoples throughout the continent, and all of those dictatorships had in their origin the Pentagon. And the Brazilian people and the other people in Latin America have, through the electoral process, established left or left-leaning governments, and they've blocked together and they've created an anti-hegemonic bloc. What the United States wants to do is break up regional cooperation where those countries could exercise sovereignty and put them all again under the dictate of the IMF or Washington or neoliberal policies which would be run by Wall Street. And that's why the opposition to Dilma is in Washington right now, meeting with the Republican Party and with Wall Street bankers, preparing for a post-Workers' Party government, which would take Brazil, not only lose its sovereignty, but probably take Brazil out of BRICS. BRICS was the promise of a possible return of something that would balance the unipolar power of the United States and NATO and the IMF. The U.S. definitely wants to destroy BRICS.
United States have been professing to be fighting tax evasion all over the world, but at the same time they've opened up some tax havens in their own country. See, the states of Delaware, Nevada, Wyoming and South Dakota are the new Switzerlands of this world. They are tax havens that guarantee people a banking secrecy which surpasses that of Switzerland and Luxembourg. And what they're doing right now is they're blackmailing people all over the world because nobody knows if he will end up in that list. And people, the only way that people can avoid ending up in that list is putting their money into the new tax havens in America. And the most important thing is the things that are not reported, because they're holding back a lot of information. So that way they can blackmail people all over the world who will be afraid that their name might show up there sometime. And I think the whole thing should be seen in a wider context, because what is the American government doing? It's pursuing a policy of destabilization all over the world. And this also serves this purpose of destabilization. The US is preparing for a big, super big financial crisis, and they want all that money in their own vaults and not in the vaults of other countries.
Now, if you look what happens when a multinational corporation evades taxes, it deprives that country of the resources it needs to carry out its mission, to take care of its people, to provide for defense, to provide for all the benefits that these corporations profit from, and it weakens their position. Then if you cross that over and you look at what's going on globally with these trade organizations, the TTIP being passed, that weakens national sovereignty further. What we're seeing here is a move by the globalists to essentially dissolve the sovereign nations of the world as we see them today, or at least weaken them so much that corporate governance rules over sovereign governance of free people around the planet. The IMF needs to go away. It needs to be dissolved. It serves no useful purpose. The IMF has been a tool to enslave countries and burden them with debt for decades. If you're going to have a multinational corporation doing business within your sovereign territory, you better make them play by your rules and not allow them to pilfer taxes and to hide them in havens. The sovereign governments of the world still have the power to extract their pound of flesh from the multinational corporations, which is why the multinational corporations are pushing so hard for the TTIP trade deal, which is really a disaster for all free humans on this planet.
The global economy still faces serious challenges, and we both know just how important trade deals are in driving global growth. So Barack and I remain among the most determined to achieve our vision of a US-EU trade deal. And we're working hard to push this forward because it would add billions to our economies and set the standards for the rest of the world to follow.
What actually is the truth, if you look at the official statements, at least 1 million jobs are going to go directly as a result of TTIP. And that's 325,000 are going to go in the USA, but in the European Union, including Britain, the official figures say there is going to be 680,000 jobs lost at a minimum. And that does not mean more prosperity for us. It means more profits for the big corporations and disaster for ordinary working people who are already feeling the squeeze. Well, we know that the logic of TTIP is about trying to remove barriers to trade. And what they've said to us explicitly is that those barriers are the regulations, the rules, the standards that business would much prefer not to have to apply. And that is exactly environmental standards, food safety standards, public health standards. Wherever business can see that it would actually be able to make a bigger profit by not having to comply with these regulations, that's where they're trying to get rid of them in TTIP. And we said to the UK government, well, is there a possibility of raising standards in TTIP, or is it always downwards? And they came back to us quite explicitly and they said, no, it is only about lowering standards. There will be no raising of standards in TTIP.
The crux of the problem is that we're at a very dangerous crossroads in terms of strategic geopolitical relations and, of course, warfare. What is happening in recent years is a breakdown of communication, East-West communication. It's coupled with what we might describe as the globalization of NATO. It has a military agenda, which is one of conquest. The United States and its allies, and that includes NATO, are covertly supporting terrorist organizations. And then Hillary Clinton says nuclear weapons are on the table. So that when we have that kind of discourse where people in very high levels of government are making statements that actually point towards a World War III scenario, we are at a very dangerous crossroads, and World War III is not an option, and the United States will not win World War III. Nobody will win World War III.
We are fortunate to be living in the most peaceful, most prosperous, most progressive era in human history. Consider that it's been decades since the last war between major powers. More people live in democracies. We're wealthier and healthier and better educated, with a global economy that has lifted up more than 1 billion people from extreme poverty. If you had to choose a moment in time to be born, any time in human history, you'd choose today.
RFID, Radio Frequency Identification oder auch Identifizierung mittels Radiowellen, ist eines der meistdiskutierten Themen der vergangenen Monate. Während sich ein Mainstream-Reporter nach dem anderen einen RFID-Funkchip vor der Kamera unter die Haut implantieren lässt und gleichzeitig dessen Nutzen bewirbt, warnen alternative Medienmacher davor, dass der RFID-Chip der zentrale Baustein zur Errichtung eines total überwachten faschistischen Staates sei. Im öffentlich-rechtlichen Fernsehen argumentieren Moderatoren, dass der RFID-Chip eine praktische Alternative zum Öffnen von Türen mit einem Schlüssel, Speichern von persönlichen Daten und Passwörtern auf dem Smartphone und zum Zahlungsverkehr mit Bargeld sei. Ein RFID-System besteht aus einem Lesegerät und einem Funkchip. Das Lesegerät kann ein Smartphone, Tablet, Laptop, Scanner oder allgemein jeder funkfähige Computer sein. Der Funkchip ist ein elektronischer Kleinbausatz, der aus einer millimetergroßen, teils spiralförmigen Antenne besteht, die mit einem kleinen Speicherschaltkreis verbunden ist. Dieser liest und speichert Daten auf dem ebenso eingebauten Speicher. Neben den noch diskutierten Einsatzmöglichkeiten der Fahrzeugortung, Bargeldortung und Echtheitsbestimmung von Medikamenten sind ins lebende Tier per Operation eingepflanzte RFID-Funkchips bereits bei der Haustieridentifikation im Einsatz. Seit 2012 müssen Haustiere einen implantierten Funkchip im Körper haben, wenn sie in der EU reisen wollen. Eine Chipppflicht für Menschen, wie sie für Haustiere bereits flächendeckend umgesetzt wurde, wird in den Leitmedien noch nicht öffentlich diskutiert. Doch die Zielstellung einer übergriffigen Chip-Verpflichtung per Gesetz wird in der alternativen Medienlandschaft als hochwahrscheinlich angesehen. Filmemacher, Rockefeller-Vertrauter und Medieninformant Aaron Rousseau warnte bereits 2006 vor einer RFID-Pflicht.
They want a one-world government, controlled by them, everybody being chipped, all your money in those chips, and they control the chips, and they control people, and you become a slave, you become a serf to these people. That's their goal, that's their intentions.
Eine besondere Gefahr liegt dabei in der Unmöglichkeit für den Bürger, die RFID-Chips technisch zu überprüfen. Ist der Chip ein reiner ID-Chip oder hat der Zusatzfunktionen? Handelt es sich möglicherweise sogar um ein Tötungsinstrument, mittels welchem der Träger per Funk eliminiert werden kann? Letzteres ist insbesondere nicht mehr auszuschließen, seit 2007 der Patentantrag eines saudi-arabischen Erfinders beim Deutschen Patentamt in München einging. Dieser beinhaltete die Überwachung und Tötung von Menschen mittels RFID-Chip. Umso nachvollziehbarer ist die Wut und Empörung von Eltern und RFID-Gegnern, dass auch der Kinderkanal Kika für RFID-Chips Werbung macht.
Ich habe zum Beispiel hier einen Funkchip und da auch einen, weil warum keine zwei?
Und was hast du, Angelo? Hier habe ich auch so einen Funkchip wie den und der ist so groß wie so ein Reiskorn. Warum macht man sowas drin?
Aus Spaß, glaube ich.
Ob Politiker, die sich den gläsernen, kontrollierbaren Bürger wünschen, Chip-Produzenten, die mit dem lukrativen Geschäftsfeld RFID ihre Patente vergolden möchten, oder Medien, die sich staatlich verpflichtet oder als Werbeträger für RFID einsetzen. Die Advokaten der Funkchip-Einführung sind eine breite Meinungsfront. Doch auch der RFID-Widerstand ist gut aufgestellt und aktiv. Mit all den Chancen und all den Gefahren ist RFID eine Technologie, die eingehend geprüft und sehr vorsichtig eingesetzt werden sollte. Eine verpflichtende Implantation scheitert nicht zuletzt in Deutschland an dem im Grundgesetz verankerten Recht auf körperliche Unversehrtheit. Auch daher scheint es die Strategie der RFID-Profiteure zu sein, die Bevölkerung nicht zu zwingen, sondern sie zu überreden, sich den Chip freiwillig einsetzen zu lassen. Die RFID-Kritiker dagegen arbeiten darauf hin, genau dies zu verhindern.
confidential whistleblower from the CDC who's going to come out and say that the CDC had committed fraud on the MMR study and that they knew that vaccines were actually causing autism.
My oldest son, Ian, was walking and running. After the vaccine, he was no longer able to do that.
So I called the clinic and I said, I think my child's had adverse reaction to those shots.
And then came the head banging, the constant banging against anything that he could find.
The CDC had known all along there was this MMR autism risk.
It's a vast number of children who are being diagnosed with autism every day.
This is going to be a complete catastrophe if we just let it happen.
Oh my God, I cannot believe we did what we did. But we did.
This film is not about Andy Wakefield, it's not about me, it's about Dr. William Thompson, whistleblower at the CDC, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, which is the most important health agency in the world. This scientist has come forward. He said that they are basically throwing out data, manipulating data on the MMR autism study that took place between 2000 and 2004. Basically, they've committed fraud. He's making these statements. He's provided us with the documents that prove what he's saying, or that he says prove what he's saying. Those documents appear in our film. His statements appear in our film. That's what this story is about. This is a very important story that the people and citizens of this country need to be worried about.
So, Dr. Wakefield, what message do you think people should take away from the film? What is the scientific message here?
The first thing is that people should go and watch the film and get educated, to have an opinion on this film and talk about the subject from a position of knowledge, and so few people have actually done that. But the most important thing is not anti-vaccine, it's about safe and effective vaccines for children against serious infectious disease. It's been portrayed as an anti-vaccine movie. It is most certainly not that, but it is not good enough for us to stand still and accept the word of the pharmaceutical industry and the CDC in light of these revelations and in light of the parents' stories who were not anti-vaccine, but their children have been harmed.
I mean, it's incredible. It's been a year and a half since this scientist came forward. The Congress has sat on its hands. And more surprisingly for me as a journalist is when this scientist came forward, not a single major newspaper, not a single major news program in the country decided to pursue this story. And then last July, Congressman Posey in Florida stood before the Congress, held the documents and said, I have documents here provided by the whistleblower from the CDC. I've interviewed this man extensively, and he is telling us that they are manipulating data and they're covering up the fact that there's a causal link between the MMR vaccine and autism. But even after this congressman comes forward, how is it that not a single newspaper tells that story? What is happening here? This is a very real scientist. He's waiting to be heard by the Congress. The United States, we as free people, deserve to hear what this man has to say. They should roll cameras and show the country. Yeah. Because we need to get to the bottom of this. A million children have developed autism since this paper said the MMR vaccine is safe, and that's in the United States alone.
There's a lot of information about things that are happening with the CDC, the pharmaceutical companies. There's a lot of things that are not said. I, as a parent of a child who has autism, I'm concerned, and I want to know the truth. And I'm not anti-vaccine. I want safe vaccines. There are many people who will come out and say, no, I saw my kid change like overnight. I saw what happened, and I should have done something, and I didn't. So there's more to this than meets the eye, believe me. Let's find out the truth. Let's just find out the truth. Everybody doesn't seem to want to hear much about it. It's shut down. And you guys are the ones that should be the investigating. Do the investigating.
What if you didn't have a choice whether someone injected you with a vaccine that contained known cancer-causing agents, toxic chemicals that can create autism or brain swelling or even immediate death? That would be an issue, wouldn't it? And that's actually happening right now in the United States with Senate Bill 277 in California, which recently passed, which is the forced vaccine bill.
It's a dangerous precedent because it strips away medical choice from parents and citizens, and it establishes a precedent where the state believes that it owns your body or the bodies of your children, and that it can then mandate that you must be injected with any substance that the state says is in the interests of public health. And yet that same state never talks about what is in those vaccines. They never talk about the ingredients. So if you really start digging and get to the truth, the vaccine mandate is linked to cancer because of the ingredients, and it is something where the state is now denying you personal freedom and the power of your own choice to decide what interventions you want to undergo. It's a kind of genocide if you really get down to it.
What I often do when I speak to parents, I say, well, see this beautiful green apple I have here? Now I'm going to inject into that formaldehyde, aluminum hydroxide, polysorbate 80, phenoxyethanol. Are you going to feed your kid this apple?
When you're injecting anything into the body, you're intentionally bypassing a lot of portals of immune defense that would normally be active and working because you want this to penetrate deep into the body. Well, that's the idea of vaccination. I say, fundamentally, yes, vaccines can cause cancer, no question about it. Vaccines are not safe, they're not effective, they don't do what they're supposed to be doing. They're not responsible for the major declines in infectious or contagious diseases in the West. That was done by revolutionizing society, better sanitation, better nutrition, less overcrowding, development of the middle class, etc., etc. The fundamental environmental things that you would do in order to improve life for people. That's why those diseases basically went away. And when they return, it's basically because those factors have diminished again, which we are now seeing, especially when it comes to nutrition, because it's gotten a lot worse over the last few decades.
The studies that are have been done with vaccines, that's been paid by the manufacturers. But the FDA in America, for adding it to their program, they go with these studies. So the fox is guarding the hen house.
The government has paid out since 1986 through the National Vaccine Injury Compensation Fund over $3 billion, $3 billion for literally thousands and thousands of cases of children that received the vaccines and they were injured, and their families have suffered profoundly, and they are just a fraction of those who were compensated. It has been declared by the government that vaccines are unavoidably unsafe, and yet they claim that they are safe and they claim they're effective.
Many vaccines, if you just read the inserts, will say things like the HPV vaccine, for example, says that upon receiving this injection, you may lose consciousness and pass out and fall down and hurt yourself. And this is just considered normal. Or you may have seizures, you may have fever, you may have to go to the emergency room. These are all listed on the vaccine inserts. And somehow the American public has been brainwashed into thinking that this is normal, healthy medicine. It isn't. I'm not against the theory of vaccination. Let's be clear here. Why can't they manufacture clean vaccines without the chemicals that are single-dose vaccines that could be given with a margin of safety that doesn't exist today? The patient must be given the choice. The patient must be informed. You know, this is supposed to be a pillar of the ethical practice of medicine in the United States of America and really all around the world. That is now being stripped away.
when we fall into physicality, what happens is that sometimes we move further and further away from the light because we get absorbed and focused on the physicality, and then we become forgetful. We forget what our original self is and where that self came from. It's a point where humanity is now in a place where they spiritually have to mature, and along with that, or one of the most integral parts of spiritual maturity is having the vision of who you want to be. What is it that humanity wants to become? What is it that humanity actually wants? It's taking a little longer because of the disempowerment of humanity that everyone has been subject to through education, through religions. It's taking a little while for humanity to make that turn, but it is occurring, and we're getting lots and lots of help. The key, though, to really making this thing move in a positive fashion is us, the people. There is movement. It could be faster. I think everybody out there wants it to be faster, but they're very patient with us because they understand the incredible hardships that humanity has had to bear with all the negative intervention and manipulation that's occurred. I can tell you that, you know, when we get to the other side of this, humanity will have some things to teach the rest of the galaxy, because no one has gone through what we're going through. Not even close. And there's a very small core group of reptilians and AI that are desperately, drastically trying to maintain control, their control of their minions. And it's only a matter of time before all the dominoes fall, and it's over. And it's over for them. They will implode into their own fear and their own darkness. So what we need to do is just stay focused, try to stay positive, and, you know, be the observer, not to buy into all this shit that's being created, try to draw us, you know, away from positive energy, positive field, into a negative field. We simply cannot feed these beings any longer. We have to starve them out of here. They just simply won't. They won't make a change. And in the future, their actions now become a threat, a serious threat to the entire galaxy. That is not going to happen. They are not going to be allowed to do this. So they are cornered, and they know it. Now, the things that are happening here are multidimensional. Okay? There is no way they can stop this. And it's going to happen, but again, ultimately, because each individual has to make the choice themselves to either go to the light or not, or to be confused or not, then that's a choice they're going to have to make. In the end, however, it's going to be extremely positive. But the learning curve here is going to be dramatic, and it's going to be wicked fast, because people are going to have to wake up really quick, and those who are willing and open, they will in fact get this education. They will realize their full potential. They will understand what in fact has been going on. Now, there are many groups that are here, ET groups that are here doing the work. So this is coming at them in a multiple way, and they simply cannot deal with it. They're doing what they've always known to do, and that is to create fear and build weapons. But their day is done. It just hasn't played itself out yet. We are just now in the countdown to truly being a free race. But, you know, once that happens, we have no excuses ourselves. We have got to step up and start behaving, you know, like spiritual adults, and take care of each other, take care of our planet, represent our solar system in a mature, responsible manner. It's just got to happen. And I believe with the right mentoring, this can absolutely turn around pretty quickly. You know, benevolence could come in and clean the environment within a week.
quanto riguarda la coerenza mente-cuore, dagli studi della biologia, appunto in cui abbiamo scoperto che l'essere umano non è vero che lavora come una piramide, quindi con il cervello che comanda sul corpo, ma con tutti i sistemi biologici che oscillano insieme, comunicano insieme, si è scoperto che a livello di questa capacità di dirigere questi organi c'è il cuore. Quindi il cuore ha una centralità come direttore d'orchestra, in quanto il cuore, oltre ad essere una pompa, in realtà è il più grande comunicatore del nostro corpo. Quindi il cuore comunica in 4 modi differenti, quindi comunica attraverso le vie nervose, quindi afferenti ed efferenti a livello del cervello, e ci tengo a dire che il cuore è l'unico organo che ha più vie nervose che vanno dal cuore al cervello e non viceversa. Quindi questo faccia pensare. Comunica attraverso le onde pulsatorie, comunica attraverso ormoni, perché il cuore è anche una ghiandola ormonale che produce ormoni, produce l'ormone dell'amore, l'ossitocina, produce l'ormone dello stress e del dolore, del dispiacere. Ma il cuore comunica anche in modo elettromagnetico. Il cuore, essendo un organo in movimento entro cui scorre un fluido, produce un campo elettromagnetico che viene a permeare l'interno del nostro corpo, ma anche l'esterno. Quando i nostri sistemi biologici oscillano in fase, si parla di alta coerenza, quindi alta coerenza in cui, secondo natura, tutti i sistemi lavorano con il minimo sforzo per il massimo rendimento. Quando invece i nostri sistemi non comunicano, diciamo, in maniera coerente, sono disorganizzati, il battito cardiaco è alquanto disordinato. Questo a livello di teoria. A livello pratico cosa vuol dire? Che esiste uno stato fisico specifico che si chiama appunto coerenza cardiaca, in cui i nostri 2 emisferi cerebrali entrano in fase. Questo succede quando, respirando lentamente e profondamente, riusciamo a rallentare le onde cerebrali, quindi entrando in uno stato alfa, per esempio, o teta. Tipo qualunque altra tipo di tecnica di meditazione, rilassamento, qualunque tipo. Quindi il rallentamento delle onde cerebrali è il primum movens per riuscire ad ottenere questo stato di coerenza. Quando le onde cerebrali rallentano, possono essere agganciate al ritmo del cuore. Si crea una maggiore comunicazione diretta, appunto, mente-cuore. A questa comunicazione così in fase tutti gli altri organi si adattano e si entra in quello che si chiama lo stato di flusso o flow. Esistono delle tecniche molto semplici per entrare in questo stato. Questa è una cosa che dovrebbe essere insegnata già nelle scuole ai bimbi. Questo stato di coerenza è uno stato in cui una persona ha quella percezione di cui parlavamo prima, molto più ampia della realtà, e in cui il tempo paradossalmente sembra fermarsi. Questo perché poi a livello di fisica quantistica sembrerebbe che nel cuore, secondo Dan Winter, non esista né tempo né spazio. Dan Winter dice che all'interno del nostro cuore noi siamo frattalmente identici all'atomo di idrogeno e al Sole. L'essere umano non può più essere considerato come una macchina e quindi non si possono più estrapolare i singoli organi come se fossimo appunto dei pezzi da aggiustare, ma dobbiamo considerarci come un tutt'uno. Il padre della medicina, che possiamo considerare Ippocrate, che è stato il vero primo medico olistico della storia, riteneva assolutamente importante la cura anche dei pensieri.